Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go and comp this into a shot. I'm going to come back and put the textures on this afterwards. I just want to get this into the shot. So, first one, I'm going to do it in Vray. So I'm in render settings. Switch from Arnold to Vray. And when I'm in Vray, if I want to bring a background picture in, I'm going to go into overrides, and I'll go over here to environment, override environment, background texture. I'm going to go in browse, and I'll go and find a file texture. And let's see, when I do this, if I go and I hit this button again, come on, there we go, there's the file texture. And image name, let's go and browse. And when I'm browsing here, which one is it? That one, let's use that one. Okay, so I got that plugged into the background. So let's just check it out and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to Vray, show the Vray frame buffer, and I'll hit the little render, and there we go. I'm just going to quickly grab this, and I'm just going to assign a default Vray material to it. I've got all these Arnold things on here, but let's go to assign a material, and I'll switch your Vray surface, Vray material. Boop. And why did that go black? Is there a problem with this surface that I don't know about? Let's just hit G and see if that helps. Boop. Anything? Okay, for some strange reason that helped. Didn't pick up on this one. Okay, now as I rotate around here, you can see the background isn't really the photograph. Okay, if I go back to, it is the photograph, but there's something wrong. So I'm going to go here, background texture, and I'll go this way. You'll see the file texture, click and it'll refresh this thing. There, great. The Vray place environment node is on spherical. So if I switch it to screen, boop, there we go. And so I can place my object, and it looks like I've got it somewhat on this pool table here. Okay, now what I need. Let's see, render settings, that part's done. Boop. What I'll do next is I'm just going to go over to the Vray tab, and here I can create the Vray plane. That's also under here, what is it? Geometry, Vray plane. Infinite plane, so it makes this flat plane. You can kind of maybe use that to kind of adjust and figure out where the angle is correctly. I'm picking a really kind of a vague thing to place it on. I'm not really checking my camera focal length or anything like that. Remember, if you go into the camera, if you select it here, you can play with the focal length and get something a bit different. This one here, just straight on my phone, should be fine. Okay. Then, this plane, the plane whoop, is small. I'm just going to take it and move it over a little bit so you can see it. Boop. It's really, really small. I'm just going to make it big. That's because my scene's big. Maybe it's too big. Anyway, I'm just going to take this plane here, the Vray plane, and I'm going to assign a new material to it. And I'm going to choose the Vray wrapper. Okay, so now I've got a wrapper associated with this. Still can't see anything here. First thing you're going to need to do is you need to plug in a default Vray material into the base. And did that really work? Here, let's just go and hit stop, and we'll refresh that. Okay, it's still black. Okay, still black. And that's because I'm going to hit this and I'll go backwards up here. I need to put on matte surface, shadows, effect alpha, and the alpha contribution should be -1. That means that if I look at my Vray renderer here and I look at my alpha, okay, I don't have a light with a shadow on it yet, but I will see shadows soon. Go back here and we can see through. Okay. So we got most of our parts working. And I kind of think it'll look maybe a bit better like that. Okay, whatever. So, next thing. I need a light. So, I'm going to go into Vray, and I'll go to Lights, and I'll create the Vray Rec Light. And the Vray Rec Light, I'm just going to move this a little bit off to the side here as I do this. Let's just move this a little bit over this way. You can scale it up, and as soon as you scale it up, you start to see light coming off of it. Here, I'm going to rotate it over a bit. If you want to move it around, if you hit T on the keyboard, that triggers the manipulator tool. And now I can do stuff like this. Grab the other one. Okay, and I gotta figure out where the light's kind of coming from. Maybe I have to move this one around here. This also brings up that maybe I should have two cameras. I'm just gonna close this down, and I'm gonna go in here to create cameras, and I'll create a fresh camera. Put two of these on here, and if I go to panels, perspective, camera 1. Okay. So there we go. And so this one here, I can kind of do things like manipulate my light, and this one I can see what it's going to render like. And so let's go back over here. I've got this one high lit. There's a little white line around it. So this is this selected camera. And if I go to Vray, show Vray frame buffer, hit render, should go to this one over here. Okay, it's not. If I go over top of this and I right click, camera 1. There we go. That doing it? Come on. Rendering image. Just taking its sweet time. Oh, it's because I hit the render. I hit render, not IPR. So let's stop that. And if I go right click here, camera 1. And there we go. I got it. Okay. So, and I find that kind of angle I like. Okay, great. We'll say this is fine right here. Nice shadows, whatever. I'm going to go in and I'll use the lock. There's a little button right here, lock camera. So now I can't rotate or move it. And let's move this over this way a little bit. Let's figure out where I want my light. Here I can kind of move this around, maybe a little bit fancy so I can kind of see it. Okay, great. And now I'm getting some dark shadows in here. So I've got a couple of different options here available to me. What I might do is I might create a dome light. Boop. See here with the dome light though, it's kind of filling in the shadows. It's kind of like a fake global illumination. If I go into the attribute editor, light color, the intensity is a bit hot. So I'll bring this down. Okay, so it's not quite so hot. We're seeing this big white thing here, and that's in the options. Make it invisible so you can't see it. You also might notice that it's kind of like lighting this up with just whiteness, right? I can go here to the texture, use a dome texture, and I can browse, and I can go and grab a file texture, image name. I've already gone and saved one of these in here. I'm going to grab this thing. This is just something I did of the pool table room right here, and I hit open. And now you'll see that the dome texture is in the background here. Okay, I don't want to see it necessarily, but it is kind of helping to light this out and blend it in. As a matter of fact, if I took one of these claws and I found material on it, if I cranked up the reflection and I turned off the Fresnel, you'll see that it's reflecting totally what's going on in the scene. And you can do things like you could grab the dome light, rotate it around if you wanted to. If you don't want it to show up in the reflections, there's other ways to do this too. What time am I at? Yeah, but this one here will give you a basic kind of a good sense. And you see it's kind of also the intensity of the light. Let's go and find this thing here. That's the V-Ray light lister. I can come in and select the dome light and whoop, play with my intensity. And that will start to kind of wipe out the shadow a little bit here because the light's coming from all around. And okay, just because I don't want these shadows to be too much stronger than that. I can also go to the other light and whoop, select it. And if I go into the shadow area, I can, if I need to, I can take the shadow color and bring it up a little bit. So, oh, maybe not that much. Oh, this is going to be a subtle thing. As soon as I go up, it goes white. Might have to do with a fill light. Anyway, something else too that I noticed, the claws are still kind of chunky, and over in this window, they're smooth. There's a couple different ways I can do this. What I'm going to do is go into the render settings, and in the overrides, there's viewport subdivision, and that will go in and smooth those out. Just taking a second. Okay, I'm going to stop it and refresh it. And va-boom, they are smooth. Okay, and anything else I got to worry about here? I didn't want these things super reflective, but maybe I can do a little bit about the materials here. I'm going to put a texture on this later on, but just remember that you can come in here to the material and maybe dial in a little bit of reflection glossiness, and that'll bring it down so this is kind of washed out. No one's going to notice that I don't have exactly matching pictures. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I can put in a rim light if I wanted to. I'm going to leave it out. And so, and then when I'm finished, in Vray, what I can do to go and render my sequence is I go to the render settings, and let's hide all this stuff. I go to common, and right in here there's the animation section. It says it's disabled. I put it to standard, and then I can do, what is it, 120 frames. Okay, there's a, where is it? Render animation only in batch mode, so I might put that on. So when I'm doing renders, if I'm doing little test renders here, that'll make it so it won't render the whole sequence, otherwise it'll render the whole sequence. This should be on by default. 120, if I go in and I want to control any of this stuff, I can bring up my maximum subdivisions. This is a progressive render. You'll see that it's based on this here, maximum render time set to 1. If you put it to say 5, you'll get 5 minutes of render, and you should get a cleaner render out of the whole thing. And actually, maybe one more thing I'll point out is right now I'm not really picking up any reflections from the ground plane. It's coming in gray over here. You'll see that if I go in and grab the plane and I get the material attributes, and over here there's the base material, it's gray. If I change the color so it's something obnoxious, so you can see purple, okay? If I wanted to pick up this red table, what I can do is on the diffuse here, if I go ahead and hit the map button, File Texture, if I right click, I can do it as projection. When I do it as projection, I can switch this from planar to perspective. Camera projection, none. I'm going to put the camera shape 1. And I'll go browsing for the image. And I'm just going to pick out that background image I was using over here. Whoop. And now that red table should pick up in here. So you can see the reflections here picking up all over the place. And you can make that blur out if you want to, but there we go. That's the basic setup for setting up my render. And when you're finally finished and you're ready to render the sequence out, if you go into rendering, you render, and you hit it with batch render. Okay, there's something called render sequence. That's for Arnold. This is for Vray. And I'll stop here.